So welcome, Melanie, our beloved colleague. We so appreciate your consistent leadership. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by acknowledging our creator. We acknowledge all the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So Melanie, can you please share a little bit about your work and share your background with our listeners and our viewers?
With pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Victor. So I'm Mel Valcin. I'm the president and CEO of United for Literacy. We're a national literacy organization that works literally coast to coast to coast, all across the Arctic, all across the 10 provinces to bring the literacy support to individuals, families, and communities that want and need to improve their literacy skills. Just quickly, some people might be like, why literacy? In this country, it's not necessarily a very well-known fact that one Canadian adult out of two, almost one Canadian adult out of two, doesn't possess the literacy and numeracy skills to be able to fully thrive in the in the world of knowledge and technology that in which we live nowadays. And out of those 50% of Canadians that are, having difficulties to read and write, we have a good 20% that would actually have, could not, for example, read the direction on a bottle of medicine, or that cannot actually read the big titles in newspapers. So imagine the consequences. So maybe we can talk about that later, but if you want me to talk to you a little bit about my background, I will ask that question again to start answering. Why did I choose literacy as the cause that, I've been actually involved in for 22 years? I must say this, I've been the CEO of United for Literacy for about a year and a few months, but I've been in the organization for 22 years. And why? Victor, sometimes you kind of have to look back in your past to see how all dots connect. And I think I'm starting to see a pattern here. So, I was born and raised in a small village outside of Quebec City. And my dad is from Haiti, immigrated when he was 18. My mom is from northern Quebec, a tiny little place called Lac Saint-Jean. How do these two met? Long story, but one thing that they shared that I think connects to where I am today is that both their fathers, my granddad on my dad's side was a coffee trader. He could count well, but had about a grade 4, grade 5, schooling. My grandfather on my mom's side was a farmer in northern Quebec. Again, didn't necessarily finish primary school education, hard life. But both those two men had goals for their children, and they sent their 6 children to school, to university, so that they could aspire to a better future. And I think this is this legacy that, kind of runs in my veins, Victor, because if I look back, once, I left Quebec City to go study in Toronto, actually. So I did at first, I thought I was going to do a big career in international development. So I studied at York University and then at U of T in international studies and international development, all the while working to welcome new students at York University. I had that job on campus. And yes, then I went to work for the UN in Mexico City. I went to work in international education at Monash University in Australia. And, when I came back from Australia, I stumbled across this organization, Frontier College, which is now United for Literacy. And this is where I really found, my core, where like an organization where my values, my goals, and everything I stand for was, present. And I'm telling you, I'm drawing that picture because if I look back, from the day that I actually started to study at university, or even from the legacy of my parents, education has always been at the core of any kind of work, volunteering, and experiences that I've had. So here I am, 22 years, 23 years in the making at United for Literacy, trying to unite this country around an issue that I think we really need to shine light on, so that we can make sure that we achieve equal opportunities for everyone and prosperity for everyone.
Ashe, that is a beautiful story. My goodness. Such a rich history of resilience, resistance, tenacity, and ambition. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate your leadership and your remarkable ancestry. Thank you. So, my next question is, what inspires you currently in your role and in your work right now?
Such a good question, and it's an easy answer that I have for you, Victor. Inspiration. I get it from the courage and education and resilience of our learners. Across Canada, United for Literacy, just last year, we reached about 33,000 Canadians of all ages, from 0 to 99 years old. We worked in partnership with about 500 community partners that are, also serving our learners. And I'm in awe every time that I see a learner coming, whether it's a small child or a participant that is a small child or an adult that say, I want to improve, I want to gain skills, I want to be better at reading to achieve such and such dream. This is where I kind of puiser, I don't know that word in English, but this is where I get my inspiration from. Of course, also, I'm feeling extremely lucky and inspired by the numerous volunteers that get involved in our organization. Last year, again, alone, I think we had over 1,600 volunteers across the country getting involved with the organization. And also, Victor, of course, like what's an organization and what's what the soul of an organization for me is always it's amazing people like the staff, and we have 120 plus staff across the country that every day, it's a tough world out there in the community and nonprofit sector. You know this, you gotta wear many hats, you gotta be flexible, you gotta be caring. And I see in this world that is not really easy to navigate through right now, this bunch of people that inspire me every day. So the staff that I get to work with.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. So it's a perfect segue. What challenges and barriers do you face in your work? And what are some of the ways you and your team are working to overcome some of these challenges and barriers?
Well, Victor, I'm not sure that I'm gonna be able to be super original here. I was just with a bunch of leaders of the youth sector across Canada, and we were all bringing challenges to the table. And you know what? It was always the 3 or 4 main same ones. So you tell me if you're also experimenting this or hearing about this at other tables. But of course, one big challenge is the fact that for us, at least at United for Literacy, since 125 years, yeah, we've been around for a long time, we have been relying a lot on volunteers to deploy some of our programs. And the volunteering sector is really changing right now. And like the youth that used to get involved with us are also changing. They're asking for different ways of volunteering. So adapting to this new world of volunteering has been a bit of a challenge. And also our numbers of volunteers are declining. I was just talking about 1,600 volunteers last year, but Victor, in our heydays, we were recruiting 2,500 to 3,000 volunteers across the country. So we're going to get back there, but I see that we have to kind of go back to the drawing board to see who are the volunteers we're attracting, because also I think sometimes we're a bit kind of stuck in a certain model and a certain pool of people that we thought were going to volunteer. So give more access and also change the ways that we are recruiting and change the way that we are giving or structuring our volunteer experiences. Another thing, I actually wrote an article on this a few months back, Victor, is the whole tech, AI, the tech world is changing so fast. We don't even have time in the nonprofit sector or at United for Literacy to, like implement a new tool or a new database that just comes, and something else is out on the market and we're already kind of like lagging behind. So I think I don't want to speak for the whole sector, but I hear this a lot, the whole technology piece now with all the AI tools that are coming out. I feel that already some of the people that we're serving, like our learners, for example, they're often left behind because they don't have necessarily the skills that the literacy skills that they need to take advantage of all opportunities. But now with this whole tech and AI fast pace and change, I feel they're doubly left behind, if I can say, because I even feel that I'm left behind with the new technologies that are coming out because I don't have time to catch up and really get familiar with everything. So that's something that we got to address as a sector, I think. And we really, like, I'm trying as a leader to be involved and sit at some of the tables with some of the where some of the decisions are made when it comes to regulating AI and that kind of stuff, because I think it's very important. And if you allow me to name a third one, I alluded to that earlier, but I think there are a lot of challenges when it comes to HR management right now, because this post-pandemic world doesn't take into account that the whole, the staff of organizations in the nonprofit and community sector during the pandemic kind of, held the country, but like they were there to keep on working, to keep those food banks, open, to keep teaching literacy to people that needed to improve their skills. And they didn't take a break, they didn't rest, they couldn't, and now they're a bit burnt out. And we have to find ways to care for our people, to make sure that they have also, decent wages and living conditions. So yeah, that's another kind of challenge that I see across the sector. We need to take care of our people. They're exhausted, and we want to make sure that they're able to really thrive in their work environment so that they can continue to do the amazing work they're doing.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Myself and my colleague Kathy Taylor from ONN just had a discussion very similar about the sector. And even though I'm the worst person to share this, but rest is a form of resistance, and we have to find ways and means to embrace rest as a key part of our work, because folks are burnt out in every area of this ecosystem and these sectors. So thank you once again for your candor and your leadership. So my next question is, how do you feel about the future of literacy and educational attainment for young people in Canada?
That's a very good question. Victor, I'm a little bit worried, if I'm honest, I'm worried because, again, I don't want to, we keep on saying, oh, post-pandemic world, but this is a true fact. The pandemic had a huge impact on our kids, on adults also that have low literacy levels. There are international research that are conducted every 10 years within the countries, the OECD countries, and also, I don't know if you know the PISA study. This is like a study where we look at performance of high school students. The results of both PISA, or at least the adult international studies, will come out in 2024. And for the past 20, 30 years, the results were about the same, if I can say, like, not a lot of variation, but we're anticipating that that we're going to be facing results that are actually lower than what we've seen before because of the school disruptions that we've seen, because also of anyway, so many factors. So I'm a little bit worried about literacy levels in this country. So what we're trying to do right now, Victor, is to really, so at United for Literacy, we're determined, we're motivated, we're ambitious. We want to solve this problem once and for all, but we know we cannot do it alone. So the strategy right now that we're deploying, and I'm really like putting a lot of force behind this, is that I want to work with other organizations from the literacy sector, but also other organizations that are working in other sectors, but that are connected to the learners that we're trying to serve. So I'm talking about the youth sector. I'm talking about organizations and tables like the Setsi. Like I really want to gather as much support and energy around the skills development issue, if I can say, in this country, and government, businesses. Like let's all unite. Let's all unite for literacy, so that we can really have a lasting impact and start to make a dent in those horrible stats that I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Thank you. So, what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
That's such a good question. For me, Victor, success means, well, okay, I'll be a little bit like, utopic here, but it's of course working ourselves out of a job. So success is literacy levels in this country increase, and then people are more healthy, have more access to housing, are coming out of poverty through education, and are less involved with criminal justice, that kind of stuff. So this is the ultimate goal, but shorter and medium term goals. Success to me looks like, as I said, uniting as many people as we can around the literacy issue, but also making sure that every place becomes a learning place, that is a safe learning place, and that we can, for example, for us, work with the partner, set up a co-design and set up a literacy program for a certain population, set it up, deploy it, deliver it, test different things, and once it's running well, we move on, and the community or the entity that was partnering with us to run this program now has the capacity to keep it going on their own, so that we can move on to another environment where we're needed. Because this is really our motto here, Victor. We just go where we hear there are needs, and we're not there to duplicate anything. All our programs are being deployed in the community. I always say, like, the community is our classroom. And so I love it when I hear, and it happens. Like, I'll give you an example. We work in Nunavik, which is the northern Quebec territory, where there's 14 Inuit communities. And it has happened in the past that after running, for example, for 5 years, a summer program, we are told, hey, Mel and others, we're ready to run it now. Would you just train our staff and give us books? And then 2 years later, it's like, could you just send the books and materials and we'll run the show by ourselves? And we're like, yes, we love it. Now we can take our expertise that we've gained and developed in partnership with this particular community and import it or export it to another place or another community where we can start to structure the same kind of activity, always adapted to the local reality. But this is for me, this is success on a small scale, and hopefully at long term we'll be able to say, well, we don't need to work anywhere anymore because we've solved that literacy issue.
Ashe. So, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
Yes. So thanks for giving me this opportunity. Call to action. Well, first of all, I would say, whether you're a leader, a parent, a community member, please make sure that you read with your little ones, whether they're your nephews, your own children, your grandchildren. Make sure that you find ways to read every day with our little ones. Developing a love for reading, and by reading, I don't mean necessarily storybooks. This is great. Reading to kids is super important, but also it's okay that your little nephew wants to look at the hockey scores in the newspaper. That's reading, So make sure you help people develop healthy reading habits and not and they become avid readers, because to us this is really the base of everything. At United for Literacy, we don't say it enough. For us, literacy changes everything. It changes lives, it changes families, it changes communities, and I know it can change this entire country. So that's what I would leave you on, Victor.
Incredible. Thank you so much for your leadership, your clear conviction and passion for this work, and for all that you do for so many. We really appreciate you. Thank you.
I send you the same. Victor. Thanks to you for giving us an opportunity to talk about our work. It's really, really appreciated.
Indeed. And we'll close this interview the way we began, by acknowledging our creator, by giving thanks to the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We acknowledge all our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Melanie. We appreciate you.
Thank you.